welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. We're also on BitChute and YouTube as Speaking Podcast. I also have the Awakening Podcast, the Learn Polish Podcast, the Meditation Podcast, and the Crypto Podcast, and all can be found on roycollin.com. Today, my guest, please welcome Donna Serdula.
Hi, Roy. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great today.
Brilliant. So you might let the audience know who's Donna.
Who is Donna? Let's see. I am an author. I wrote a For Dummies book all about LinkedIn profiles. Back in 2009, I started the very first LinkedIn profile writing company. We write LinkedIn profiles for executives and professionals from all over the world. And in that regard, I also speak all over the United States on the topic of LinkedIn and professional branding. I also get a little bit into job search as well. And I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm all those things.
And what's your, because I always like to know the speaker's journey before they became a speaker when you were younger. How were you on stage?
Oh, so I was exceptionally shy. I was bullied. I'm a tall lady. I'm like 6 foot tall. And so I look normal from the screen, but I'm sort of gargantuan in real life. And I think that made me a bit of a target as a youngster. And I was terribly shy to, as well. And so, which would seem strange. Like you think, oh, she's going to kind of shy away from things like that. But when I was in college, I got really pulled into theater and I loved acting. I really enjoyed that. And then, after college, I started to work at this company where we sold software to body shops, like not mechanics, but like collision centers. So a place where you take your car. And it was there that they kept tapping me. They said, oh, Donna, can you get up and speak to these insurance companies? Can you speak to this user group? And so I started to get up in front of people again. And I think the theater experience, helped that. And then when it was, and I continued to do that through my career, even so from there, I went into selling software to architects and engineers. Again, I started to get them on stage to talk to them. It became like a real big part of my sales process was the fact that I could, get up and speak. Now I could not walk into a small room of people. That was really hard for me. But I had no problem getting up on a stage full of, hundreds of people. That was never an issue. And then when I started my business, I once again started to, I knew at that point I didn't want to cold call, did not want to cold call. That was not anything that I wanted. And I thought to myself, I'm going to do things differently than what I had done in previous positions. I'm going to really put out value. I'm going to educate. I want to try to inspire people. And if I can give enough value, people would want to work with me. And so, in my process of doing that, getting up and speaking was, a part of that.
And did you figure out why going into a room of maybe 6 or 8 people was harder than standing in front of a larger audience?
I don't know. I still don't know. Isn't that funny? My husband thinks it's hysterical. Like when we have to go to a small little barbecue, I'm always worried. Like, are you sure it's the right time? Are they expecting us? And like that moment of walking in is really hard for me. But I don't have a problem getting up on stage. I don't know why that is. I think it's a continuation of the shyness that I had when I was a kid.
Brilliant. And like you mentioned that you've traveled around the States and you've got a family. So is it something that you just disappear and let the husband mind the kids, or do you take the whole lot with him? How do you actually manage, having a family?
Through the pandemic has been lovely because, there hasn't been any travel. So I've really been able to stay home, which has been lovely. I don't travel a ridiculous amount, even prior to the pandemic. I would take like maybe one speaking engagement a month, one every 2 months. And so I wasn't leaving for a very long period of time. It was usually like an overnight, maybe 2 overnights at most, over like a 3 month period. So it wasn't like I was, taking, I was away from my kids, but I will tell you this little story. I was called to Los Angeles to speak. We're in Philadelphia, so we're on the East Coast. Los Angeles is on the West Coast. It was the middle of the winter. There was a huge blizzard coming, and the event planner said, Donna, I think you need to come, maybe 2-3 days ahead. So you don't get stuck in the blizzard, because we have a lot of people coming. We don't want you to be canceling or late because of the blizzard. So I was like, oh my goodness, should I really go to Los Angeles like 2-3 days? Just lounge by the pool. I have no problem with that. And I left my husband with our 2 small kids, and I brought my mother with me. We went to Los Angeles, and it was sunny and beautiful. And I did some, Facebook video chats with my husband, sipping a margarita while he was, bundled to go outside. And I felt terrible, but it was just the perk. It was the perk of the speaking business.
And I think sometimes you have to do that, because I know that some people, they'll just go in and fly back out straight away. Sometimes stay the extra day, kind of pamper yourself, and especially if it's a good gig that you can, afford, that it's built in, because the flight is the flight. So if you can, if you can have a little bit of a me time, I call it, we all need some me time.
Yeah, and oftentimes I'll bring my husband with me, and he'll we'll take an extra day and he'll explore the city. So he gets the perks too. He gets the perks too.
But that's another advantage as well, to actually explore cities that you typically wouldn't go to. You're there because of a speaking engagement, and you get to
Yeah, I look forward to when my boys get a little older, and they're getting older now, where I would love to be able to bring them along as well and really make them a part of the business and a part of that travel. So I do, that's something I do look forward to, and I hope one day we can do that.
And I know that we've all kind of like the transition to online. We just had a conversation prior to rolling about, you might tell people what happened and how you actually adjusted to because it was different at the start. I found it strange, because we were even doing like Toastmasters meetings, and we just fizzled out. Some clubs, they've done fantastic. They were like 10 members, gone up to 20 odd. Our group, we prefer meeting, cuddling, shaking hands, going for breakfast, and everyone just got sick at so many meetings. But in business sense, you kind of have to. So what have you learned about getting online as well then, is kind of going into distractions that have happened and how you kind of overcame them?
It's funny, because when I would go on to the stage and speak, you can hold people's attention is so much easier, I think. But as we transitioned to now doing the webinars, doing the more of a video conference, online presentation, one of the things I did discover is I find that my presentations online are becoming so much more interactive. Like at one time, like when I was on stage, I would just intone for, the 60 minutes or 45 minutes, and I'm trying to teach in that old fashioned teaching type of way. But now with what we're doing, online, I actually tell my audience, get out your phones, get the LinkedIn app out. And I build in exercises for them to do, because to me, I do think people have the Zoom fatigue. I think people are tired of just sitting there, listening to this talking head just go on and on and on. So that's one way I've really shifted. And I believe as we transition back to more of a, in-person type of meeting, I'm going to take that with me. And I'm going to really try to create more of a workshop, even when it's not a workshop, to use the technology in that manner. But in reference to what you were saying, you never know what's going to happen. Like you can take all the precautions in the world, you could send your kids and your husband and, you could lock the door, but you never know when the stray Girl Scout's going to come, see you through the window and pound that door down, sell those cookies, which happened to me on a live LinkedIn live. And it was crazy. It was embarrassing. You can find it on YouTube. It is what it is. Life goes on.
I mean, I told you earlier, just the same with me. I was on a live call. There was like 5 for the Freedom Broadcasters, and the neighbor came in the back door, and I have signs up. I take out the battery of the alarm, and no, the phone's off, everything is off, and he just pounded the door, and I just had to, turn the picture off. So no matter what you do, and I think, because we had discussed it earlier, I think you just have to accept, instead of panicking, because we do panic and we go, oh, Jesus. But the reality is you're better off just remaining calm and just kind of going, okay, just turn it off, because they might just think you're taking a toilet break or whatever it is, and just go out, give the Girl Scout a few clatters, give her $1 for her cookies, and then just move on.
Yeah. It's that's the one thing I really feel that the pandemic, the gift the pandemic has given us is that knowledge that, hey, we are all in this together. Life isn't perfect. We can't always pretend that it's perfect. There are kids, running around. There's lawnmowers that go off when you least expect it. And you make do. You accept it, you move on. But you always try to deliver as much value as you can.
Exactly. Exactly. So you've done, like, say, workshops. Have you done workshops? And
yeah, I do. I've done workshops. I've done keynotes. I do love, a really nice, tight workshop, with a room maybe of, 15 individuals. And what I do is, of course,
that wouldn't be the number, no, that make you panic going into to be.
No, that's an okay one. If I'm at the head, if I'm leading it, I'm okay. But and it's more of like, like what a person's having like a little party and I don't know everyone. Like that's when it.
No, I get the exact same thing. I don't understand it. I mean, I know I don't fear anything. I mean, I got late to the party with the getting over the fear of speaking. It's been like just 4 years, but I know the same. Sometimes I go into play. I just don't. It's just you get that feeling. You're just not feeling comfortable. Like so it is what it is. Yeah, but
yeah. It is what it is, and you power through it. And that's the thing. I think maybe, for me to get on stage, it was, to power through those initial feelings, to prove worth, there's a lot of, things that make a person, get out there and do this type of thing for a living. But it's crazy. Wait, I got distracted.
No, no, I distracted you. Sorry.
You distracted me. I go in and we'll do like a workshop with, like 15, 20 people. The laptops will be in front of them. And we open up the LinkedIn profile and I force these people to go through and update their profile. And I help them through and walk them through. It's a lot of fun. And I think what the attendees love about it is they can't go anywhere. Like if you have to write about yourself, Roy, or if you have to write your LinkedIn profile, or God forbid, you have to write a resume, like any odious task in the world is more attractive than sitting there and doing it. I mean, you will be in the midst of trying to start and you'll walk out and clean your garage. At least that has been my experience with all of our clients. They're like, I need to do this and I just can't. So they outsource it to us and we do it for them. But some people, like companies will say, come in and, help this team. And so it's a way of like nose to the grindstone, guys, you're doing it. I'm helping you and we're going to get it done.
And like say is it typically 2-hour workshops you do, or would you have full day ones as well?
I have done that particular workshop as either a half day. So that's like 3 hours, or I've done it as a full day. But when we do it as a full day, the last part gets more into strategy on, how to better utilize LinkedIn. And they also come away with a lot more content created. There's less homework when we're doing the full day.
And like, how do you structure yourself? Because I know there's people, everybody's got different tips and tricks the way they do it, but I'd like to know how you do it. Are you bringing in something that you've something down by the side? Yes, you know, okay, I'll do this, or do you just know yourself? What way do you structure the whole, say if it's a full day?
With my workshops, I've developed a workbook. I have that material. It's been printed out. They have it, and so I'm handing that out. And even within the through the proposal process, I work with that event planner to know, okay, this is what's important, and these are the items that we're going to cover, and this is the time for everything. So with that workshop, when there's a lot of those hands-on exercises, you can't do that. I mean, I don't think most people could just, do it without like a real strict time, because, when you're telling people to do an exercise, I mean, I have to keep, I have like a stopwatch that I'm looking at. Like we've got a half hour for this, because it so easily can go to 45 minutes. And then the next thing you know, you're not doing the full, you're not doing the full workshop. So to me, it has to be structured. It has to be timed. And I know exactly what I'm hitting at each mark. When you go into more of like a 45 minute or an hour presentation, those I have a PowerPoint, and I don't time it anymore. I just know it. I've done it enough that, I have that innate feeling of, I know when it's a 45 minutes, I know when it's an hour, and I time myself, and I just do that naturally.
And with the keynotes then, how do you land them? Because people are always trying to figure out how to land a keynote, and same thing. How do you kind of prepare yourself? Are you actually practicing it a lot of times, or what's your whole strategy on it?
Well, in terms of how do I land the keynotes, I've been doing it a long time, and I have made a name for myself. So I often, people will reach out and they'll say, hey, Donna, I need, we want a keynote speaker like you. That's great. Like when that happens, that's a beautiful thing. I also have an agent, and she, like I call her my agent. I think she calls herself, my speaking coordinator. But, I found that she has been a real game changer for me. But she finds leads, and people come to her and they say, we need a speaker on LinkedIn. She's like, I've got someone. And so she'll bring me the lead from time to time. But what I love about having someone else to close the business is when a person comes to me and they say, Donna, we want you to speak, I'm like, they're talking to me. And so it's kind of hard to negotiate for yourself. And so if I say, look, I'd love to speak at your event, we can do a whole bunch of things, but I need you to speak to Lee, my speaking coordinator or my agent, suddenly they're not talking to me. So she's able to negotiate, and she's able to, really make sure she's getting the best deal for everybody, like she's working for both people. And I feel that it's made a big difference, because it's easier for me. I think it's easier for the other person. And I feel like it raises my level of influence as well.
And typically, is it a percentage that they're working on, an agent works on? What's percentage do agents work on for something like that?
It depends on where the lead originates. So it's usually between like that 10 to 20% range.
Okay. So like, for example, you pass it over, it's less obviously because it came from you. Yeah. But that's brilliant. And I like that as well, because, even just especially back and forth and getting everything sorted, your time is precious. So if somebody can do it and they're bringing plenty of other clients to you, it justifies, because sometimes people don't want to do that. But, if it's actually, increasing their revenue, plus they know the skill, they can ask for a lot more, whereas you don't want to be doing that.
It feels icky to me. And a lot of times, I'm like, sure, I'll do it for free. And but there is a value, and it took me a little while, but I started off speaking. It was free, because it was a sales presentation. right? It was to educate, it was to give information. And plus, that was the early days when people didn't know what LinkedIn was. LinkedIn was very new when I started. It's not new anymore. So it's because of the age of the social network, the knowledge base of people, my presentation has changed. It went from educating them on why it was important and why they should invest time and money into it to now I use it. It's now more about, okay, how can you use LinkedIn to get more business, to get found, to find opportunities, to pivot in your career, and when you're talking about that, it's not about, hey, use me. It's really about, hey, this is how to empower yourself. And so it's the nature of the talk has changed. So before then they would hire me to do it for them. Now I'm giving them everything they need that they can do it themselves. Some people will, others won't, but it's a different, I just think it's the value is different.
And when with the agent, were you lucky and found somebody that just worked out, or did you have to go through a few? Because I presume there's a few scammers out there as well that just want to take you,
I found this is so bizarre. I can't even remember how Lee came into my life. I think it was through an introduction, and I think I don't. It was sort of like we were kind of both going around in the same circles, like an interlocking circles, and we just sort of like hit upon each other. But her name her name's Lee Hayes, but her actual name is Lisa Ursula Hayes, and my sister's name is Lisa, and my husband's sister who died tragically, her name was Ursula. And so when she said her name was Lisa Ursula, I thought this was a sign from God.
Brilliant.
That's why. I mean, that was that, and the fact that she's lovely and she's professional, and I really feel like she's got my back and I've got her back, and it's really it's a beautiful partnership that has worked out. I mean, we've been working together for years, but yeah, it all sort of was more coincidental than anything.
Brilliant. But I mean, I think, the team, how you actually come across professionals, well, it's all down to the team, because they set it up. And, people, I don't think people realize it, because sometimes people are trying to cut corners. They don't want to be spending the extra bit, and they don't realize that the amount of time you save, and also the professional that it looks. Because I mean, she could ask for double what you might be asking or have on a website. And
she actually, when, we first started, I mean, she has quadrupled what I used to get. And but with that said, I've also invested heavily in myself and, the career as well. So it's not like, I'm the same person that I was at the beginning.
But I think that's an important message as well, because sometimes a speaker, and you see it, because you see some people and they're just kind of doing the same thing. They don't invest in themselves. They don't try to, they say sharpen the saw or whatever, but like, that's how you become rebooked. Because if you're doing the same thing, they quickly get soon. But if they call you back again and then they go, oh, we've got fresh material here. Oh, we've got a different style.
Yeah.
Like even now you had said that you were going to incorporate what you've learned in the online stuff to your thing, because but not everybody does that, unfortunately.
Yeah. To me, it's a business, I have my LinkedIn profile, resume, branding business. That is one part of my career. And that honestly is what really keeps me afloat. My speaking business is there to support it. It's a line of, it's just an additional line of revenue. But it's a nice one. It definitely is worth it. And then, I have other aspects, other channels as well. But, with the speaking, I've always, I've really put effort into making sure that I'm always, leveling up, and it's making sure I have professionally done headshots. It's making sure that I have a professionally designed website. It's making sure that, with my slides, I've gotten them. I have a graphic designer that does my slides, so they're gorgeous. It's making sure that, when I am in front of when I'm on a stage, I've got the dress and I've got the clean shoes, and it's making sure that I've got, a professional grade microphone and the ring light and a background, and I don't know how many people go that far. I think, a group does, but I think there's a big group that they don't think in those terms.
Absolutely. So I want to get into the nitty gritty of the LinkedIn, because I think it's important, because, people are, at the end of the day, if we go down the speaker route or coach route or something, people are checking you out and they're looking at it, and some are extremely professional. It's really well written, nice recommendations, and others you just say never,
There's still a large portion. I mean, the large majority of profiles that I see, very little effort goes into it. A lot of the profiles have aged. They're not current to who the person is, or even future oriented to where that person is going. And that's a really big piece. It's really making sure that that profile tells your story, and it's not a copy and paste of a resume, an old bio, but it's something that gives a person, so it needs to be written very strategically, right? A person needs to sit down and say, okay, who am I? But even more so, who is my target audience? Why am I on LinkedIn? What am I trying to accomplish? Who is that target audience? And if they were trying to find me, what keywords would they be typing in to locate me? And, so that's a really big first step that few people take.
I think the keywords is a big thing. Well, like sometimes if somebody has like a lot of different employers, let's say, and they've jumped around, is it better?
Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing anymore.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. It's funny because when I first started, over 10 years ago, that was a big concern for some people. Like, oh my goodness, I've changed jobs, every 3 years. What is this going to look like? That is so normal right now. It is not by far something to be ashamed of. It's all about how you, as a professional, decide to position it, right? It's how you position it. So if you look at it and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm ashamed, this is wrong, and you try to hide it or you talk around it and you make excuses for it, yeah, it'll be a detriment. But if you look at it and you say, this means I have a diverse range of experiences, I understand the best practices of all of these different organizations, and I've been able to take it in and really understand how to make this work in the best way for the next organization. And I have this flexibility. And I'm not scared to take risks, and I'm not scared to change my surroundings. Like, then it's a positive, it's a strength. So it's all about how you decide to look at it and describe it. At the same time, like it's so funny. My phone rings. It rings constantly, and I try so hard to answer as many phone calls as I can. And people call me because something happens in their lives. They've lost their job, or they've been passed over for a promotion, or a press release is going out, or they need to find an investor, or they need more fund, whatever it is, something happens. And they suddenly go, oh, it's how I look on LinkedIn. How do I look on LinkedIn? Oh my God, I look terrible on LinkedIn. I need help. And then they call Donna. And it's so funny to me. I'll take a call at 9:00 where the person's like, I've jumped around and I'm so scared it looks bad. And then at 9:15 or 9:30, I'll take another call. I've been at an organization for 25 years and I'm scared that looks bad. Everyone is always scared about what their experiences are. But if you say to yourself, look, I have no regrets. Everything I did there was a reason. Maybe it was the universe guiding you. Maybe it was empowered decisions. But you have to embrace it. You have to see the strengths, and then you have to be able to articulate it. it's hard for people. They need someone to help them. That's usually where I come in. But at the same time, recognize that there's always two sides to those stories.
I know that in Poland, because I was doing a lot of different syndicates, so I was the president of a lot of companies, and I had it all there, and I took out a load of it because I said, no one's going to believe this. I had, building apartments and a commercial property and everything, but all separate companies. And I thought, they'll never believe this. And I took out some, and I kind of regret it now because I said, it was true. I did all these different things, but I took it out because I thought people wouldn't believe it.
What a beautiful aspect of who you are. And it made you who you are. My biggest pet peeve, Roy, is the CEO of an organization, and you look at their trajectory, their experiences, and it's like they went from director, VP, CEO. And I'm like, are we supposed to just believe that you were like Athena and you just burst out of Zeus's head? Like, no, I don't like that. I love it. I love it when a leader of a company is very transparent and authentic and shows where they started and each movement they made to get them to where they are. And not only to me does it reflect so positively on that CEO, I believe that it helps other people because they can see, if I start here, I can end there. Or if I'm starting here, these are some pretty good movements to make. It's almost like seeing a chess match and you see the moves. It's a similar thing. I think to me, that there's a beauty to that.
With the book then, because it's because you mentioned, because I've got the one for dummies, and it's what's the title? It's
mine is LinkedIn profile optimization for dummies.
Yeah. So I've got, I don't know, maybe 10 different books like that, and some people, they think that when it's written for dummies that there's a misconception about the For Dummies books. They're one of the best books you can get.
They really are, and they are so professional. In fact, when I was contacted, and how did they find me? I did not go to them. My father had said to me years before, he had said, if you want to be an expert, you need to write a book. And he said, why don't you call up those For Dummies people? They do a good job. I was like, no, Dad, no, they don't want me. Well, that's for really established, seasoned experts. And I remember he was like, you should call them up. But I ended up writing my own book and self-publishing it. Fast forward, my father died, but he did get my first book. He did buy it from Amazon. And then 2 weeks later, he passed away. But I'm so happy he got to see that book. But in the back of my head was always For Dummies, For Dummies, For Dummies. It was I think it was 2015. I just get a call out of the blue from the acquisitions editor. And she's like, hi, Donna, I'm the acquisitions editor for the Wiley Brothers. We published the For Dummies series. And I was on Twitter and I happened to see one of your tweets. And I was intrigued. So I clicked on your profile and I started to click around. Next thing I know, I'm on your website. And I can't believe that you've made a business out of, because I have over 20 writers that work with me. So this is not like a one-woman shop. I've got 20 writers. We write hundreds and hundreds of LinkedIn profiles. They're like, I couldn't believe this. And I realized I need you to write a book. I need you to write a For Dummies book on LinkedIn profiles, because she said, from what I'm seeing, there is definitely enough information to fit in a book. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to think about it. In my head, I was like, oh, that's how it started. It was just through, there's always that fear of like, am I putting out too much information? Like what good is all of this? Because you cannot be found unless you're putting out a lot of information. And good things happen when you put out all that information, because yes, there's always going to be people who don't need you, but they're never going to need you. You're putting it out for the people who see it, recognize the importance, but don't want to do it themselves or know that they can't do it themselves. They're the ones that you're doing it for.
Totally agree, because kind of same in the podcasting world. But like, I'm always share. I know I'm a step ahead of a lot of them, but the thing is, the people that just keep taking, because you'll find as well when you are putting out the stuff, there's other people that are giving it back to you as well because they appreciate it. You find a circle,
Yeah.
but there's others they just take, but they never develop. They just so you're 10 steps always ahead. You're constantly, changing. You're never. You might say, okay, do this, but that changes a years later. And you're in a different level, and they'll just keep doing that. So I think the more you give out, it comes back. It comes back in different ways.
And there's what is it? The law of reciprocity.
Yes.
Am I saying that word right?
You said it perfect. Please don't get me to repeat it.
I feel like I'm saying it wrong. At any rate, the law is that by doing good, it's not a one-to-one. So it's not that you do good to one person, that person does good to you. It's the mere fact that you're putting goodness out there. Goodness is going to come back in other directions and in other ways. So it's not like that person that you're doing good for has to do good back. It's just that you're doing good.
Exactly.
And that's what it was. But when I started writing the For Dummies book, they actually gave me a test. I had to write a test chapter, and then they had to grade it to say, oh, she needs a ghostwriter. No, she's a good enough writer. She could do it herself. Or, she just needs, she's good enough, and we don't even need to help her at all. And they gave me a copy editor. That's all I needed was a person to make sure that it was translated into the dummy way, because they have a very specific way of writing. And so it takes a little while to get into that habit of, how you write. But so there are some, when you look at some books, the author is there, but they have a ghostwriter. Mine is not ghostwritten. Mine is absolutely from my pen, from my keyboard. I should really say. But yeah, no, it was a fun process. It is a hellish process. The deadlines just keep coming. And it's like you're writing. I think I was writing about 30 pages a day to make the deadline. It was tough. And I will say I don't make much money from the books. I really don't. And I knew that going in. This is not going to be a moneymaker. But I went in because one, my father, to me, it was like, this was a culmination, but on the flip side, I know myself, if I'm on Amazon and I need a how-to manual and there's a self-published piece or there's a For Dummies one, I go to the For Dummies because I know it's good quality writing and content. I know that they themselves as a company have done their due diligence to choose the right author, and they've put, so much, because I've even worked on the LinkedIn Sales Navigator for Dummies. That was written by Perry Van Beek. And I worked alongside the copy editor and the ghostwriter to really make sure that the content was right. So, I mean, they put a lot of effort into these books, and it's good quality stuff.
Right. And do they get you to start promoting it as well, or do they do all that when it's...
They do zero promotion.
Yeah.
They do very little. So I promote it. And here's the thing. I mean, talking as a speaker, I would say it's better to self-publish if you plan on selling the book in the back of the room, because you make so much more money. Because when I had my self-published book, I mean, I could buy that book for, $3, and I could sell it for 10 or 15 bucks if I was speaking. The For Dummies books, their bulk rate is basically the same as if I just bought it directly from Amazon. So they sell my book for 26 bucks, but Amazon, more often than not, you can get it for about 15. So I'm buying a $15 book. Now I'm selling it at the back of the room. The price point doesn't make sense. Because people don't want to pay the 26 bucks for the book. They want a little bit of a discount if they're going to buy it in the back of the room. So we're only talking like it just doesn't make sense. So I find that when
even the transport, bringing it there, and it's just a hassle.
It's a hassle. Yeah. So I almost feel that the For Dummies is fabulous. It gives you influence. It's, there's a cachet to it. But it's not great for selling in the back of the room. I'm going to be totally honest. The price point just doesn't make sense. But it does when it's. Now I know one author, and it doesn't make sense for him either. But just the mere fact of buying in bulk that many books allows him to continually get more book contracts. So I think it depends on where you are in terms of an author, so that's just my experience. It might not be everybody's experience.
I suppose, yeah, the numbers as well, because, not everybody would actually buy it if they're in the audience, but if you physically have it, it's easy, you take the hassle out of it from, and then you go up the charts because there's so many sales. But I remember, I don't know where I saw it, but I remember somebody before, it was like 50 cents they were getting per book. And I was like, what? I was shocked at the royalties that you get. I know it's not huge, and it's like, this is because I've written a book, but I haven't published it because I've held off. But like the one that I have here now is the Awakening. Like $2 I can do that, and I've even, if I do it in mass order, I can get it for a quid, like €1. And even if you sell it for 10, I know you still have the hassle of organizing and everything, but they're able to do that. They're probably able to do it for 50 cents because, well, not the dummies, because they're normally a bigger book, but just say a normally book, but they'd still put it down as a cost of 6 or 7, and they give the author $1 if they're lucky, 50 cents, and it's like, that's why Jeff Bezos is actually so rich. Like,
oh, it is, yeah. But at the same time, I mean, I feel like when you self-publish, and it's been a while since I've self-published, since I've been doing I've been going through with Wiley Brothers. You what you pay for the book, because it's usually print on demand. You can still sell it, and you're taking home like $7 a book. If you sell a book, there's a really good chance you could be making $7 on that book. Whereas, when you publish through the publishing company, I'm getting $1 after the first 10,000 are sold. So it's different, it's different. But, I think a lot of experts aren't writing to make the money, unless they're selling it in the back of the room. I think they're doing it to have, to say, to support themselves, support their expertise. And
absolutely,
it's different.
I reckon, you're going to get a load of your clients. One, probably a lot came from the book, but two, some people, if they're comparing like for like, and they see, oh, this person has actually written that book, it gives you so much credibility straight away that you've way more chance of closing than, your competitors.
Yeah, that's true.
Listen, Donna, it's been thoroughly enjoyable. So how can people get in contact with you?
They can look me up on LinkedIn. That works pretty well.
And they'll see how to do it properly, yeah?
And they'll see a pretty nice example of a LinkedIn profile. I would say if you want to, if a person wants to see me as a speaker, they should go to my website, donnaserdula.com. That's my website for my speaking business. If a person's saying, I need some help with my branding, with my resume or my LinkedIn profile or my bio or any of that type of thing, they could go to linkedin-makeover.com. That's my business website. And that's where we have our services. And I do something absolutely insane, Roy. I have my services. I have exactly what you get, and I have a price. So people can actually see what it costs before they even pick up the phone to call me. So I find that's important. I always believe in complete and utter transparency.
I love that. It's like straight away you go, oh, brilliant. I know what I'm getting. I know what they're charging. Instead of, they just, sometimes people are kind of judging you to determine the price. And when you see something like that, you go, okay, this is transparent. I personally prefer seeing that. That for me is ideal.
To me, it makes sense because I know myself, like if I was going to do something like branding or writing, I'd be so scared. Like, am I wasting their time even calling them? I don't know, is this outside of my price range? Is it within my budget? Am I going to be surprised pleasantly, or am I going to be horrified at it? And to me, I want people to see this is what it costs. And you're going to get an amazing service. We've got tons of examples. This is everything that you're going to get. And, if you want to make that investment, we're here.
Excellent. Listen, Donna, thank you very much. And I'll make sure I put the links on the podcast description and the video.
Thank you.
So that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com or on BitChute or on YouTube. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, share with your friends, and make sure you update your LinkedIn profile. Until next week, take care.